Hello everybody. Today we're going to go over script debugging. Make sure you've enabled developer mode. It will help show all the buttons we will need for debugging, as well as the debug tab. So, the core idea of debugging is to be able to stop at certain areas of the code, called breakpoints. For example, I have here a bit of code. If I want to stop here in the code, well, I can click to the left of the line number, and there we go. I've put a line breakdown. Now, up here, we have a small drop-down menu that gives you some options for debugging. This second one is to ignore breakpoints. If I click on it, you can see that the circle here has a slash running through it. And as such, the debug will ignore these places to stop. Right now, I want the breakpoints to be activated, so I'll re-enable them. Now, if I want to debug the script, I have to click this button specifically. If I click on these other buttons, the script will not be run in debug mode, and these breakpoints will be ignored. This is because when we need to debug a script, the code needs to be compiled a different way than usual. Okay, here we go. Let's debug. So, as you can see, the code was ran and it stopped at the third line. You can see that it showed this line, but not this one. This is because the debugger stops at the beginning of the line. That is to say, it didn't execute the third line itself. If I want to continue the code execution, then I can press the F9 key on my keyboard. As you can see, we advanced to the next line, line 4. Thus, the line showed up in the console. If you need a reminder or refresher on different keyboard commands, you can view them in the settings menu up here. I can keep pressing F9, that will let me continue into the loop here and see the iterations one by one. Now, if I don't want to go through all 9,000 iterations, what I can do is create a new breakpoint outside of the for loop. Press the button up here, and there. We jumped to the next breakpoint, and the code continued to run until that breakpoint. Now, if I press the button to continue the execution, since there are no more breakpoints, the code will run until it reaches the end, at which point the program will stop. I can also deactivate here the step-by-step option, and now this button goes step by step. I'll deactivate it for this video. Now, another thing I can do is execute code while the program is running. This is called in-shell execution. For example, if I run the debug and I want to know the value of I here, I can hold Shift-Control-I, and on the left, it will show me the value of I. If I go further, and I do this again, I can see that I has increased. I can also select the variable from this drop-down menu on the left. Now, Shift-Control-I also re-executes the code. For example, if I add this, and I add a breakpoint here, well, again, I see the lines that were printed out, and I can check the value of this variable with Shift-Control-I. But if I select a group of lines here and do Shift-Control-I, I see that it has re-executed the code. See? The lines appeared again. Over on the left, we can see that it returned the value of the last variable selected. This one, right here. This is because the in-shell execution is actually a closure. See, if I create a closure down here and do it like this. Set a custom variable. And then I write the variable again. And this is equivalent to this, returning the value of the variable. Circling back to the Shift Control I, we can see that the closure here is what I selected, and the return value was this last variable here. That's why this variable's value appeared here on the left. The interesting thing is, I can write some code while the program is running, and evaluate it using Shift Control I. For example, if I write this JSON encode function here, like this, notice that the program is still in progress, and we're stopped after where I'm writing. And yet, if I do Shift Control I can run this bit of code that I selected. Even better, I can put this in comments, and that has the added benefit of only running when I decide to run it using Shift Control I. Do note that if the code is commented out and we want to evaluate it, the whole comment should not be highlighted, because then it's evaluated as a comment. The result that you can see on the left is the closure itself. Another example, highlighting the Firefox function and doing Shift Control I opens Firefox up and searches for the website I put in as arguments. This in-shell execution is also especially useful for things like fixing errors. If I've written this regex and I get an error, then I can fix it without having to retest and rerun the entire code. Thank you for listening. This concludes part 4 of this series.